Hey everybody, I want to welcome you to the next edition of my podcast, the What Else Is New podcast. This is Tim Graves. I'm the co-owner of the Graves Golf Academy. You know, my brother and I founded this academy close to almost 25 years ago now. You know, we started this. I always tell people the quick story, but Todd came to me almost 30 years ago now, and he was starting to work full time with natural golf. And he came to me, and I was touring full time, or mini tours, trying to get on the PGA events, at that time was the Nike, and turned into the buy.com and different things. And he came to me and said, hey, natural golf wants to start doing some signature schools for us. And it was us at the time. And so I actually became a part-time employee for natural golf. And then I'm part-time, was still a full-time tour player. So I'd go out and do a 2-day, 3-day, 4-day event. And then we'd go and do the signature school following that event. And very, very busy. So Todd and I, we always talk about, we literally took a SUV and pulled around a small trailer and literally traveled around the country. And sometimes Todd would play in the event. Sometimes he'd caddy for me. Sometimes he'd go out and just meet me right after the event. And we literally went from East Coast to North to South. We didn't go as much to the West Coast, to be honest with you. We got into kind of almost into Arizona. The tours I played on just weren't that far on the West Coast, but we traveled all over the country doing that, and eventually turned that into our own deal. So, that's the nickel dime tour of how we got started in this. But and I can give you that story, or you've heard it a lot more before. But people ask that quite a bit, so I like to throw that in. But anyway, in today's podcast, and this one may be, for some of you guys, this might be the most important podcast you've ever heard. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. I get this question all the time, or I get this comment all the time about our statistics and the things we follow and how we can track your games and so on. And that always leads to, and what I'm going to talk about today is distance off the tee, or yardages that you should be playing. Okay. And I'm going to put this podcast, you could call this the numbers game podcast, or the how far should I hit it distance podcast, or a reality check podcast, whatever you want to call it. And I'm bringing it up in particularly, number one, is because I'm a PGA member. I've been a PGA member for close to 20 years now. I got my PGA, I'm a Class A PGA member. And when you do your Class A PGA member, it typically should take you 3 to 4 years to get it. I finished it just under 3. The average guy or gal typically takes 5 or 6 years, because they're usually working full time as they do this. So it takes a while. But in level 3 of the PGA, you have to kind of write, I won't call it a dissertation. That would be a crime to anybody who's done a dissertation, but it's something it's a thing you do. You do a presentation that you have to do in your level 3, that you have to present to basically your class and the PGA instructors. And it has to be over something that's relevant to the PGA industry. Okay. And it might be something like, it may be things like how to get, I need more bathrooms on the golf course. We have 2 on the course, and I need 4 more out there. And I'm going to solicit my course to build more bathrooms out there. Or there's actually one that I saw a gentleman write about it. These are funny, but he wrote about that. There was a dog on the right side of a hole that would constantly get out of the yard, and he would go out and bite guys playing golf. And he wrote a paper about how you approach the members of your course, or people who live on your course, about keeping the dogs in the yard tactfully, and how you can do this where you're not making them mad who back up to the course. I know these seem silly, but it's real life. It's real life. Or we had one that was about, a guy wrote a whole paper about, if ladies and guys playing events together, and that aren't like couples, they're just like go to events together. Ladies tend to be extremely serious about the rules. Extremely serious, like cross every T, dot every I, which rightfully so. They're very serious, where the guys tend to, oh, it's okay. If you're close enough, you were good enough, as long as you're beating the other guy, I'll let it go, whatever. And how you get that together, because you put guys and gals together in a tournament, and it doesn't mix a lot of times. So I remember hearing one written about that. But anyway, I wrote about statistics. I was a numbers guy. My previous life, my previous job I had was I was a biostatistician and epidemiologist for the state of Oklahoma. So I'm very much a numbers guy. And what I did is I put together, at that time, they only had statistics for a scratch golfer, a person who shoots around 70, and a 30 handicap golfer, a person who shoots 100. And they had statistics set up for things like fairways hit. For a scratch golfer, they hit 65% of the fairway. So if you drive off the drive, and it stays in the fairway. For a 30 handicap golfer, it's 40% of the fairways. Then the next one was tee shot distance. And the tee shot distance average for a scratch golfer is 242, and for a 30 handicap is 200 yards. Okay. And it went all the way down. It went from greens regulation, number of pitches, chips, putts, things like that. And what I did is I correlated this out for a scratch golfer, a 5 handicap golfer, a 10, a 15, a 20, so that you could literally track your game, and then you could figure out where your strengths and weaknesses are. So maybe, for example, you average 230 yards off a tee and you hit, 41% of the greens regulation, and your chipping up and down is like 15%. Well, all of a sudden let's say you're a 20 handicap trying to become a 10. Well, you realize that your tee shot distance is pretty good. Your greens regulations is average for your handicap, but your chip up and down is well into the 30 handicap. So you could focus yourself or with the coach and say, hey, where do I want to focus my game? Where do I want to, my chipping's the weakest part of the game, or my putting's the weakest part of the game, or maybe your tee shot, fairways hit it. So you could focus on your weaknesses. And I presented that. And I had overwhelming response. It was great. And they honestly, because the PGA had never heard anything like that. That's kind of rare for somebody in like my line of work to go become a PGA professional. And I was actually a little bit older than the average guy too. So I ended up having to present it twice. I presented it to my class and my group, and I actually presented to the hierarchy, the executives of the PGA, the same thing. And they loved it anyway. But since then, this has become more in vogue because you've seen Acros, you've seen different things come out, and people have really been able to kind of keep the stats. Now, the stats haven't changed. This is what's interesting. The stats have not changed. Over the years, the stats have stayed the same. Now, it's interesting, and I say that, you would think, the ball's getting longer, it's getting further, they're hitting it further, No, it's interesting. They have, but that's really, it's kind of goes to the hierarchy. So the ones that are significantly hitting it further are the professionals, or the ones that are the scratch players or below scratch players, the young guns of the game. And remember, these stats I'm talking about were done with 100,000 rounds of golf of people all across the board. Okay. All across the board. So these stats are still very relevant. But the reason I'm coming in the podcast today is I was sent an email through the PGA, and the PGA actually every year votes on what we call yardages or acceptable yardages for different age groups in the PGA. So, and the reason they do this for a couple of reasons. Number one is they do present this to the public, but whether your course uses it or not, and that's another topic we'll get to here in a second, but is kind of up to them. But when the PGA plays their events, so when we have a winter series that goes on from October through basically March of every year, it's a lot of the northern PGA professionals will go down there and live full time. And these PGA professionals I'm talking about are the guys in your shop. They're the ones that are running behind the counter. They're the ones that are in the offices. There's almost 30,000 PGA members. Okay. And they actually are the ones that you see every day when you go to the golf course. They're the ones that are hopefully running your facility, or maybe running the golf instruction facility down the street, or whatever it is. That's the PGA members we're talking about. So this is very relevant, because when we go down and play in our winter series, or we play throughout tournaments in our section throughout the year, you'll have a 22-year-old guy teaming it up with a 75-year-old guy, and they're playing in the same division. You'll have a 40-year-old guy teaming it up with a 55-year-old guy, and they can play in the same division. Now, they do have separate divisions you can play in to make it fair, but they can play in the same division if they choose. Okay. And a lot of times in the chapters and the sections, they're so small, the chapters, they need to play them in the same, because you only have 5 or 6 guys that actually play would be in the event. So they kind of put them all together. So you may have a chapter event that may be, in like the central part of, Texas, maybe, cover a third of Texas. That's what chapters are. And there may be, if they don't put them all together, there might be, 10 people that play, in the under 50, 5 people in the over 50, and like 6 people in the 70 and above, whatever it is. Well, if you put them all together, you can get a field of like 30 or 35. So you get a decent field. So they work very hard on this, okay, on these yardages. And I want to present this to you guys because I think this is a real reality check for what distances you guys should be playing at, okay? Now, first of all, the first one, it is the first division they have, okay, would be the under 50. Under is 49 and under. This is where they divide it, okay? This is called 49 and under division, okay? So it's up to, so once you hit 50, this changes. The 49 and under division will play 6,800 yards to up to 7,200 yards, okay? They average about 69 to 7,000 yards now. That's 49 and under, okay? Now, and this is, guys, this has been voted on by the PGA. This is put out by the PGA. This is recognized by the PGA. This is, I want to say, enforced by the PGA. Okay. So if you're 50 to 59, so you fall into that category. That's where I am right now. the average distance, they will range from 6,300 yards to 6,600 yards. Average will be 6,400 yards. Okay. So 6,400 yards. If you're between 50 and 59, you should be playing your course from 6,400 yards. Okay. Now I'm going to come back to this. Called the super senior division. This is 60 to 69. So once you hit 60, this becomes relevant. The average distance is 5,600 to 5,800. They'll typically play it between 56 and 5,700 yards. Now, when I give you these upper distances, these are ones that they'll do in tournaments. These are ones they'll do, like in the last day on a Sunday when they want to crank up the course or whatever the reason. Okay. They typically will not go in that high end. They very seldom will because they won't. They'll go in the average or lower part of the average. Okay. Trying to keep it fun. The next one is a Legends division. It's 70 and older, or females 50 and older. Okay. So this is Legends division, males 50 and older, or females 50 and older. Okay. And that is, they play 5,100 yards to 5,400 yards. So the average distance for the Legends division, men over 70, 70 and above, and females 50 and under is 5,200 yards as average. They'll go up to 54. Okay. So I'm going to say that one more time for you guys. So you understand this, because you can write this down. You pick your division. Okay. Senior division, 50 to 59, 6,400 yards average. Super senior division. Okay. That's 60 to 69. They're going to go 5,700 yards average. Legends division, 70 and above. They're going to go 5,200 yards average. Okay. Now they don't, and that's also for ladies 50 and above. Now, ladies 50 and below. Okay. So they're 49 and under. They typically go to the senior division. They'll go 6,300 to 6,800, 6,600, 6,400 yards average. Okay. Now they don't put an 80 and above on here. I know I've had guys ask me that. And if you correlate it out, their distances would be about 4,900 to 5,000 yards if you correlate that out. Now, this is how they do this. And this is why I'm going to, another little bit of the numbers I'm going to bring up to y'all. Okay. They, number one, assume, and rightfully so, that as obviously as we get older, we're going to lose distance. Okay. And that's just going to happen. Okay. That's number one. So here's what they say. So, and this is what they equate it to. And this is also in the email they sent us. They assume that you're going to lose up to 8%. But they do it by 6% of the distance, basically every 10 years. So that's how they equate this. So what they say right now is that if you have let's say you have a 45-year-old guy, okay, and then you compare him to a 55-year-old guy, he's going to lose 6% of the distance as he gets in that age group, okay? And I know this kind of seems a little bit complicated here, but let's say that 45-year-old guy, and this is the same guy. Let's say he's hitting the ball 250 yards, okay, off the tee. Let's just say he does that, maybe he's middle length or middle distance, average for his age. Well, they say by the time he's 55, he's going to lose 6% of that distance. Okay. Well, that means he's going to be hitting at about 235. That's where you're about. I mean, if you take 6% of that and you figure it out and correlate it out, it's around that. I mean, I'm doing some rough numbers for you guys. Okay. About 235. Well, now that same 55-year-old guy becomes 65. Okay. Well, he's going to lose another 6% distance. Okay. Well, all of a sudden now he's down to 220. Okay. Maybe you follow me here. Okay. So he starts losing. That's what makes sense. Okay. And so that's how they equate the yardages. And the reason they do this, and this is the number one reason, and this is what will, and I vote on this also, as all PGA members do, is here's what they want to do. It's not assuming or not saying that, hey, everybody's going to lose distance. We understand that. Okay. The real reason we do this is because we want it equitable for that second shot into the par fours, or the tee shot off the par threes, or maybe even the third shot off the par fives. So that's what I mean by that. Let's say now I'm 57 years age. Okay. Let's say I'm playing with a 25-year-old kid, and let's say I'm playing with a 75-year-old guy. We're playing the same group, and we're playing in a PGA event. Okay. And let's say that's 25-year-old kid rips it, 290 or 300 yards off the tee, which most of them can do now. Okay. They rip it down there, and they're playing that back tee. Let's say he or she now has 170 yards into that hole, which is average from that back tee. Okay. He or she will probably be hitting a 7-iron, maybe a 6-iron, but probably a 7-iron. Okay. Well, now I need to find a tee, if I'm average distance for my age, okay, that is equitable. So when I have my second shot into the green, I'm also hitting a 7-iron. Okay. So let's say now my tee, I hit it off the tee, and I'm a 57-year-old guy, I hit it 240. Okay. Let's see how I do that. Well, now all of a sudden I sitting at 150 or 160, 155. Well, now I'm hitting a 7-iron. Well, now the 70-year-old guy or 72-year-old guy, he hits his tee shot. And let's say he hits at 200 yards or 210, average for his distance, for his age. Okay. Well, now he's sitting at 110 or maybe 100, 110. Well, now he's hitting a 7-iron. You see how this works? So it does a couple things here. Number one, what it does for you is it makes it equitable. So if your average distance for your age group, you should be hitting the same club into the green that even somebody's average distance for a younger or older age group. Okay, that's number one. Here's number two. It rewards players that are longer for their age group. So let's say right now you're 70 years of age. You're 71 years of age. Let's just say that. And you're playing a course that averages at 5,200 yards. That's what it is. Okay. Well, let's say the average 70-year-old driving distance is 210. That's about what it is. It's between 200 and 210. That's what it should be. Well, let's say you've kept flexibility, you're strong or whatever it is. You're above average for a 71-year-old guy. So let's say you can still hit at 240 or 250, which is amazing. Okay. For a 71-year-old guy, that's amazing. Okay. Well, guess what? You will now be rewarded because you will be able to hit it. You'll have wedges into the greens from 100 yards out, okay, or 90 yards out or 80 yards out, or you'll be inside that. You'll have wedges versus this young kid's 7-irons. Well, you're rewarded because now you're long compared to your age in consideration for average, okay? So that's what allows it, because here's what happens, and this is when it messes up the whole thing. Let's say right now they do it by two things. Number one, you just walk in a golf course and say, hey, there's the championship tees, men's tees, ladies tees, juniors tees. And you go play the men's tees. Well, you can have a 20-year-old man, 50-year-old man, 70-year-old man. That tells you nothing. It tells you zero. Here's the second thing that messes it up when it's done by handicap. And this is the one that probably frustrates me the most. I see golf courses out there that they say, oh, if you're between a 0 and a 10 handicap or a 0 and a 9, you play the back tees. If you're between a 10 and a 15, you play 1 up. If you're, you know how this works. Maybe between a 19 or 20 to 25, you play 3 up. Well, all that's doing is trying to speed up play for the course. Because what they're doing is they're saying the worse you are, the further I want you to play up to get this thing done easier, because we know you can't hit it very far, not very accurate, so we want to go. But it doesn't reward you, because what that does then is it says, as I become a better player, I got to tee it up further back. It doesn't make any sense. So let's say you're a 67, 68-year-old guy. I'm just throwing this out. And let's say right now, you should be playing this distance from about, well, the average for that is on the numbers is 5,700 yards. So 5,700 yards. But let's say you're playing that and all of a sudden you're playing the middle tees, okay, on your course. And let's say you drop your handicap from all of a sudden from a 11 to a 10 or 11 to a 9. Well, then that pro comes and goes, you got to back up a tee because you're a better player now. What? That doesn't make any sense. So they're actually they're punishing you for becoming a better player. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And the PGA recognizes that. Okay, we absolutely recognize that. And I'm going to give you a quick story about this, and then I'm going to kind of end this one. But this is a great story. I play in an event. Now I'm going to give you his name. His name is George Glenn. He's a PGA professional. He's been a PGA professional for. I'll bet George Glenn's been a PGA professional for over 50 years now. He got in the profession very young, and George is in his mid to late 70s now. So it's probably over 50 years. Okay. And George was a head pro in Tulsa in Oklahoma for years and years and years. They had big public courses there. And he went from Kansas City, did things in Kansas, and anyway, and then ended up in Oklahoma. Still, he's retired in Oklahoma now. But 2, 3, 4 years ago, when George was still playing a lot of golf, when I would play in events, and I was in late 40s, early 50s, and we'd play two-man tournaments. It could be a guy and a girl or two guys, didn't matter, but it was partnership tournaments, and they could be alternate shot tournament, best ball tournaments, national best ball tournaments. It didn't matter. Okay. When you play in these, and I have an opportunity to play in 5, 10, 15 of these a year, depending on how busy I am. I mean, these are very popular, especially in the winter series. I can choose any player I want to play with. I could go get a 24, 25-year-old, 21-year-old young gun that cranks it 330 yards off the tee, and that can be my partner. And we're playing a best ball tournament. So let's say right now I go out and play in a par 4, and I make a 4, he makes a 5. We write a 4 down on the card. The next hole I make a 4, he makes a 3, write a 3 down on the card. Okay. Or we're playing in scramble tournaments where we go out and play, and we play, take the best shot and go on. In fact, one of the biggest tournaments we play in our section or in our area every year is actually one in Missouri. It's called the Lake Team Championship. And it's a 3-day event. The first day is a best ball. The second day is a scramble. The third day is a modified alternate shot. So it's like Ryder Cup format alternate shot. It's phenomenal. It's a fun tournament. Okay. But I could choose any partner I want. Well, I would choose George. Okay. And the reason I would choose George is because, number one, he was a really good guy. Used to be, or still is, a really good golfer. But here's the deal. George does not hit the ball far. If George kills a drive off the tee, it's probably 200 yards. And that's if he hits it hard. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I probably never really measured one of his drives, like how far he hit it in average, but I do know that he'd hit a 5-wood hard 160 to 170 yards. Okay. And he'd hit a 7 wood hard, 150, 160 yards. Okay. If that tells you anything. I mean, he could crank on a 5 wood, maybe 180 if he's lucky. I mean, that was pushing it. Okay. He's hitting a 7 iron at 110 yards. That's where he's at. Okay. Which is very average for his age. In fact, it's probably even a little above average for his age. Okay. Well, here's what it came down to. Is we go playing these events and we won a lot. In fact, for 3 years, we didn't lose a section event. We played 2 or 3 in our Oklahoma section. That's Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas put together. We never lost in a baseball tournament. We went to a national event down in Dallas or down in Port St. Lucie. And one year we finished top 10. Next year we finished second. Okay. We should have won it actually. It's not the story, but we finished second. I mean, and these are against the best PGA players, from the sections in the country, and we're finishing. Okay. And I'll never forget, we're playing in an event down in Port St. Lucie. And we're playing against 2 young guns. And we're playing against 2 guys that are ripping it, just crushing off the tee. And they're teeing it up from like 6,900, 7,000 yards. And George is teeing it up from 5,400 yards, 55. Okay. So if you go up there, they're basically in the back tee and George is on basically the ladies' tees. Okay. Where he's supposed to be playing. And the tees are there and boom. And they're set up for the tournament. And I remember one young man walked up to him and we're crushing him. These 2 guys were crushing him. We're like, I think through like 14 holes, we're like 11 under. It was in a best ball event. And these guys are like 2 or 3 under. And they're getting run over. Okay. Me and George are playing good. We're playing really good. And I remember one of the young guys frustrated. And it was playing in this par 4, and he's teeing it up from like 460 or 450, and George is teeing it up from like 340. So it's kind of long for George, believe it or not, but he's playing from like 340. And as the young man hit his tee ball off, and then he walked up past George, and he goes, "I can't believe you're playing it up this far. This just isn't fair." And he made a comment. They're getting run over. And I'll never forget, George Glenn turned to the young man and very kindly, because George is the nicest guy in the world, goes, "Young man, I'll tell you one thing. I've earned these tees. I've earned these tees." I'll never forget that. He goes, "When you're playing at 71 years of age, you've earned this tee too." I'll never forget that. It was classic. It was classic. And that's why the PGA works it. The PGA makes it, okay, so that as you get older and you're still playing golf, you earn the right to play those tees. It doesn't matter what your handicap is. It doesn't matter your ability, okay? It doesn't matter if you're a guy, gal, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. You have earned those tees, okay? And I need you guys, and I promote you guys, and I strongly suggest you guys do this. And here's the deal. If you go into your pro shop and the professional says, "No, that's not what you should be playing," tell him to pull out the yardages that their section has voted on to play. Tell them to pull them out. Or you can sell them to national. They'll have those for sure. Or tell them the national yardages. Say, "Hey, pull out your PGA national yardages, the ones you use if you go down to Port St. Lucie and play in your winter events. Pull out those yardages and let me see those. Let me see the suggested yardages, because that's what I'm going to play from. The same ones you would." Okay? Because here's the deal. Your kid, the shop, may be supporting those young guys. He may be the one, "Oh, I'm that young guy in the shop and I'm going to make this Equitable so everybody has to tee up from this." Bull crap. No, it's the same tee. No. You go to him and say, "Your chapter, your section in the national yardages are voted on, and this is what they are." And you can even say Tim Gray's on them, because they're written in stone. This is what we live by, okay? Because here's what it comes down to. And I've had a lot of discussion with that. If you're in your 60s, okay, if you're anywhere in your 60s, your average par 4 distance is going to be about 350 yards. Okay? Your average par 5 distance is about 450 yards. Your average par 3 distance is going to be about 150 yards. That's just the way it works out in the card. Okay. If you're in your 70s, your average par 4 distance is going to be under that. It's going to be 330, 340. Okay. And then so on. Now, here's the last thing I'm going to talk about in this. And this is back to the stats. And I know a lot of our elite members are starting to really keep stats now. They're working with their coach and keeping the stats. They're tracking their game. They're doing the assessments. Okay. But let's do some calculations real quick here. I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to do this right in front of you. I'm being filmed on this. Okay. So this is an easy one. So let's say you want to become a scratch golfer. Okay. And you need to know what yardage you need to hit your driver, okay? And an average scratch golfer distance is 242, okay? And that's for everybody, okay? But let's say in your 50s now, okay? So let's say you're between 50 and 59, okay? They give you 6%. So if you're in that distance right now, your average, I'm going to do this in my calculation right here, okay? Okay, your average distance needs to be 227 off the tee, okay? So if you're between 50 and 59, the average scratch golfer will hit at 227. Because remember, you have guys that are older, you guys are younger, but the average is 227. So that needs to be your average off the tee. And you guys, you can believe it or not, this is a numbers game. This is a numbers game. And it's done by doing hundreds of thousands of rounds and figuring this out. Okay. Now let's go to 60 to 69. Okay. Let's do this again. Okay. Your average just needs to be 213. 60 to 69. That's average. Oh, yeah. A lot of you guys would be longer. Some of you guys might be a little bit shorter, but let me give you a secret. If you're between 60 and 69 and you're averaging 215 to 220 off the tee, you don't need to be working on distance. You might need to be working on accuracy. You might need to be working on, whatever other part of the game. But if you're hitting at 215 to 220, you're between 60 and 69 on average. Okay. You're hitting 220. You are equitable. You are meeting the needed requirements for distance to play the golf course in scratch. Okay. Now let's go 70 above. Okay. 70 above is 201 yards. Okay. So you got to hit 200 yards off the tee. This is classic example. I just gave that to George. I told you if he killed the drive, it was around 200 yards. And guys, when you keep George's handicap, trust me, it's 5-6 below par. This guy will go out. If he shoots even par, he's upset, but he's a very good golfer also. He's upset, but let me give a secret. That would be if he hit a hard drive right there. And he's breaking par every time he plays a golf course. You know why? Because he's playing the correct tees. If you put him back in the champions tees or whatever from the champions tees, he couldn't even get home to have most of the par fours. There's no way. There's no way. I guarantee there's some areas he couldn't carry over the junk and par fives. There's no way. Okay. But 200 yards for a 70 and above year old guy is what you need to average off the tee to be equitable to scratch golf. You want to be a 10 handicap, you drop it down a little bit. It's about 185. Okay. It'd be 10 handicap. So guys, and here's the other thing this will bring up. And you guys know I'm the short game guru. I'm the short game guy with Graves Golf. This is going to be even more relevant to you guys sitting there and saying that you need to pound drivers in the range to get them longer and get stronger with the driver. And then all of a sudden you realize you only have to hit it 200 yards off the tee on average when you're 70 and above to become a scratch golfer. And when you put that into play, then all of a sudden you start comparing that to your short game and you're getting, 10% up and down or 15 or 20% up and down chipping. And you're averaging, 40, 38 or 39 putts around or whatever it is. And you're trying to get to 10 handicap or below. And all of a sudden it's really going to put more emphasis and relevance in that short game. And I promise you it will. So guys, anyway, I wanted to throw that out for you guys today. I wanted to let you guys hear that. And I will start publishing papers on it. We're doing a webinar on this because guys, we've really started promoting these stats and keeping the stats. And I'm always going to say that you want to keep the statistics when you play around the golf. If you're not playing around the golf, you really, if you don't play much golf, you want to do our assessments. We have a lot of assessments we have set up and we do it for our level 4 and level 5 members. We do this because a lot of guys don't play as much golf. But we've got to be able to, as a coaches, we've got to be able to sit there and say, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Because remember, you're only going to be as good as your weakest part of the game. Listen to me very carefully. Your weakest part of the game will always drag you down. And if you doubt that, you can go hit every fairway out there. You can average 220, 230 off the tee. You can go hit, 75% of the greens regulation. You have 39, 40 putts around. You ain't ever going to be below a 20 handicap golfer. So think about that. You could be almost perfect in greens regulation. Seriously. You could almost be, or above greens regulation. You could be way above average distance. You could be way above average accuracy. And if you can't get below 38, 39 putts around, counting all your putts, you can't break a 90. It's just that simple. And it will never happen. And I can promise you, and if you keep stats, you'll convince yourself of this. Okay. So anyway, we'll talk more about this. I wanted to bring this up and kind of it's a preview into some articles, some webinars, things coming up, because this is very relevant. People get these questions all the time. And it also, most of the time I make your guys' day. Because when I sit there and say, as you get older, you earn things. As you get older, you don't have to hit it as far. As you get older, you earn the right to play those up tees. Okay. So all you 70 and above guys, when you're up there playing the ladies tees, or I don't even want to call them ladies tees, it's the 4th tee box up or whatever it is, use the yardages. When you figure it out by looking at your card, what yardages should be, you can thank me for that. Go tell your pro that he can talk to me about it or talk to the PGA section about it, because it is voted on by their sections and by the nationals. So we vote on this. And this is also put into national prevalence. So if you went and they had a fun event on something like a Lake Tahoe with these guys in different age groups that you see on TV, this is what they're using. This is the yardages they're using. Okay, guys, this is what they're using. Okay, so anyway. So guys, I hope you enjoy this. You got questions, you can always email me at timg@gravesgolf.com or just drop me an email. Or why don't you get on our Facebook pages or get on the Single Plan Academy and talk about how much you love this podcast? Do that. We'd love to hear that. These guys create it. They do it. They do a great job on this deal, but especially this one. You guys, I should be a lot of you guys heroes right now. So any young guns out there hearing this, we get to get teed up way in front of you and go after you. Okay. So maybe the young guns don't like me on this one. Okay. So that's just too bad. So sad. But all you, the older guys like me out there, we're loving this. Okay, guys. So anyway, if you like this podcast, let me know and let us know. And I'll talk to you guys real soon.